Five-star Joson Sanon is coming to the Sun Devils basketball program, and let's face it, they're all in.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you get your podcast, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you missed it, Sun Devils basketball has the number 7 recruiting class in the nation, the number 4 overall class, number 7 overall, number 4 in the composite ranking, number 59 in the transfer ranking, which, I'm not too worried about that considering they got 2 4-star transfers and a couple of other really highly regarded guys. It's a good transfer class. I don't care what the ranking says. But what everyone is interested in is the recruiting class. ASU previously got 5-star Jayden Quaintance just over a month ago, the highest rated recruit in program history. Yesterday, they flipped shooting guard Joson Sanon from the U of A, ladies and gentlemen. They flipped him. A 5-star kid is now joining ASU. 2 5-stars, 1 offseason. The basketball program doing this. Guys, we've never seen this before. This is unheard of for Sun Devils basketball. Now, for what it's worth, Sammy Yine did end up decommitting from the program. He did say that ASU is still a possibility. I think it's fair to assume he's probably not returning, but beyond the point of that, this is still the number 4 recruiting class in the nation. This is insane. And like I said, this is something that ASU has never seen before. And it makes you think that this is going to be a program that is all in this year. They're all about winning right now. If they're ready to compete, it's never been more clear, more apparent. But the question on everyone's mind is, how did this happen? Well, from a drama standpoint, Caleb Love, the shooting guard for U of a former, NCAA champion at UNC a few years ago, transferred to U of A, was pretty rock darn solid for him last year, decided to return for one more season. Now he had put on Twitter a little video, like we've seen him before. It's like a minute and a half snippet. And then at the end, it's like, I'm returning from my senior season, or I'm coming back, or job's not finished. And it was the latter of the bunch. Was Caleb said, job's not finished. So he's coming back. Immediately, Joson Sanon quoted the tweet and said, "Love this." Then he proceeded to swap his commitment. It's interesting. I'll say this. It's very noteworthy. But you also just take a look at this kid and you're like, if he's dialed in, I'm not really worried about whether or not he's very spiteful towards the other program, especially because this is coming from a guy who's, I don't care about U of A at all. So whatever hurts them makes me happy. Joson Sanon deciding to flip his commitment to Arizona State, I'm all about it. Especially if it means that for the 2 games that we play the Wildcats this year, if he's playing with a bit more of an edge, then yeah, it's that much better. This is also a player that I have seen some people say for the 2025 class for the NBA draft, he is already seen as a top 15 lottery pick. Pretty cool as far as as far as I can tell, that's normally a pretty good sign of landing a very talented player. He is going to arrive to Arizona State with a massive opportunity to end up being one of the top players on the team, potentially a starting player on the team. Right now, I would tell you there's only 2 guaranteed starters on the team, which are returning guys, with Adam Miller at point guard and Sean Phillips as the center for the team. Everything else seems to be up for grabs, whether it's a transfer, whether it's Quaintance or Sanon as the 5 stars coming in. They're all going to compete. But with Sanon, there's a chance that he's able to arrive to the program and from day one be one of the best players on the team. At least according to the way that other people perceive him, he's got a chance to instantly be the best player on the Sun Devils. It's phenomenal. And you also wonder that with that kind of arrival, what else that means for the program. Like, you wonder if NIL has finally caught up, because Quaintance, from what I have seen, is going to be making $1 million this year. I wonder if Sanon is also going to be taking a look at something like that. But there's clearly something at Arizona State that Sanon is interested in. You don't get one of the top 20 recruits in the nation and convince him to come to a program that is top 25, coming to a program that is coming off arguably the worst season under their head coach and have the interest in turning the program around. There's something here that he's buying into. Maybe it's the NIL. Maybe it's the university itself. Maybe it's the opportunity to play with some very talented guys like Jayden Quaintance. There is something here that he's really interested in. And as long as he's dialed in, I'm not worried about any of the other noise. Like, I know there's going to be people that come out and they say, oh, it's immaturity and blah, blah, blah. It could be, but we also don't know what was said behind closed doors. We do not know what was going on at Arizona. Maybe there was some miscommunication between him and the program. Maybe he just didn't mesh with the rest of the team. Maybe he was interested in finding a starting role immediately, which has the opportunity to seize at Arizona State. We don't know. All we know is he decommitted from Arizona, immediately swapped to Arizona State with the coolest graphic ever. If you got a chance to see it on his Instagram, it's basically like him, and it's got the Arizona logo, and it's like kind of fading away, and it like turns into Arizona State. And his caption was "Add State" to the end of it. #Vorks up. Phenomenal. Whoever made that graphic for him, or if he made the graphic himself, outstanding work. But as long as he's dialed in, I've said that a number of times on this show. I do not care if he's the most mature man in the world or if he's a young guy who's still learning. As long as he is caring about the program, putting the program before himself, and understanding that in order to become a really good player, you're going to need to learn to play with the people around you. That's all I care about. And you don't just swap commitment that quickly. There's clearly something at Arizona State that is drawing him there. That's all I need to know. It's not like he decommitted and then kind of searched around for his options a little bit, which is still fine, but there's something at Arizona State that was just like, yep, that's exactly where I want to go. Who knows what it ended up being? Honestly, it also could have just been spite. Like, it very much could have just been, you guys are not the program I want to be with, so I'm going to go to your rival. Very well could have been what happened. But until we know definitively what it was, I'm not going to worry about it. As long as he shows me that he's dialed in, he cares about the program, he wants to be one of the better guys here, wants to be one of the best players that we've seen in the last several years, cool. Sounds good to me. Who knows what played into it? It could have been NIL. It could have been spite. It could have been that he really likes the program. It could have been that Jayden Quaintance is here and he wants to play with very talented guys. And it was already a top 20 recruiting class. He might just be really interested in playing with the rest of that roster. Until we know definitively what it was, I'm not going to worry about it. I just see him as someone who clearly cares about the program enough to want to come to us immediately. I'm here for it. I'm all about it. But the biggest question that we have now is what comes next for ASU? How is this going to impact the future of the program, whether that's this year or 2 years down the road? Well, we're going to talk about it in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I got to talk to you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier than before. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can find yourselves getting up to 60% off on last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and any other tickets that you can find. Flash deals will allow you to save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And you can also choose the section and let Game Time choose the seats for even more savings. You can toggle their all-in pricing feature that shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get the view from your seat in a panoramic style so you know what to expect when you arrive. And the best part is their lowest price guarantee, which means that Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Wherever you're getting those podcasts, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new shows. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Back into the conversation about Joson Sanon committing to Arizona State. Next, we're going to talk about what happens next. Well, we can start with the obvious, and that's that this is the best recruiting class that Arizona State basketball has ever had. It's not close. 2 5-star players, another 4-star kid, and a high 3-star. If Sammy Ine does end up coming back, you will have 2 5-stars, 2 4-stars, and a high 3-star. Even without Ine, this is still the number 4 recruiting class in the nation. The number 7 overall class. It's never happened before. It's never been done before. This is such a surreal group that you have assembled together. And as far as what happens next, this could be a sign of things to come. And I'll put a question mark at the end of that. What happens now? Now that you have added this much talent in such a short amount of time. It was within a month. You had Jayden Quaintance commit on April 29th and Joson Sanon commit on May 29th. So within a month of each other, 2 5-stars that were added to what was already a top 20 recruiting class. It's nuts. It is just crazy to see how quickly everything is coming together for Arizona State. You have to wonder if this is going to be a sign of things to come. Is Arizona State going to be able to start recruiting on a much higher level? There was always the wonder as to whether or not ASU was ever going to catch up with the NIL factor. Over the offseason, Bobby Hurley was talking about how they wanted to get NIL more involved, and then he announced that he was going to be partnering. I can't remember if it's Netflix for sure, or if he was looking at one of the streaming services to create a docu-series about him as a coach, him as a player, all that good stuff, which would bring in a few $1 million to the program. There's a lot of stuff that's going on right now that would lead you to think that this is potentially going to end up going very well for ASU in the future of the program. We obviously know that for the current time, that ASU should be able to compete with some of the best schools in the nation. On paper, let me go ahead and emphasize that. On paper. Games aren't won on paper, but this is a ridiculously talented program for Arizona State right now. In theory, you should be able to compete with tons of really good programs. Is the rest of it, is the future going to catch up with Arizona State? Is this a one-year thing where you've assembled such a good class, but you're not really able to build off of it? Or is this going to be the way things are moving forward? Like, we shouldn't be expecting 5 stars every single year. Arizona State still isn't a blue blood program. They're not Duke, they're not North Carolina, they're not Kentucky, they're not Kansas. This is not a program that on an annual basis is going to bring in 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. But maybe you start snowballing to get to that point. One of the comparisons I want to make is Alabama. 10 years ago, Alabama basketball was not worth watching. It just wasn't. There wasn't anyone on the team that was really standout, and they never really were a good, I won't say not a good team, but they weren't a tournament team. But now, within the last few years, I mean, they've had a ton of 5-stars go through the program. They had the former number 2 or number 3 pick in Brandon Miller come through the program, and now they're one of the powerhouses in the SEC. It happened very quickly for Alabama. This could be the case for Arizona State. Everything is finally culminating, and ASU is just able to capitalize on the momentum that they're bringing in right now. What has everyone always called Arizona State? Ladies and gentlemen, say it with me. The sleeping giant. Excuse me as I hit my microphone. The sleeping giant. Arizona State is the sleeping giant. They're such a big university. They have everything. They're X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. We've heard it before. We've heard it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Is the sleeping giant finally waking up? Is Arizona State going to finally snowball the same way that we talked about with Alabama and turn into one of the powerhouses of the Big 12 or just a annual tournament team? I've said before on this podcast, that's my expectation for ASU. We're not necessarily looking to win national championships or anything, but we want to make the tournament more often than we miss the tournament. This is not a team that has had practically any tournament success under Bobby Hurley. We need that to change. Is this finally going to be the change? Is this going to be the straw that broke the camel's back in a good way? Like, ASU has just been waiting for so long, and now maybe things have finally been figured out. At least from a recruiting standpoint, they seem to be getting it together. And for what it's worth, Bobby Hurley has always been a very good recruiter. You look at the top kids that have been recruited to the program ever, they've all been under Bobby Hurley. Outside of Quaintance and Sanon, Josh Christopher, 2020 class, was the top rated recruit prior to Quaintance coming in. Lucas Dort was also there, really high 4-star. Enoch Bache, Marcus Bagley, Tayshawn Cherry. Like, he's brought in a ton of very highly recruited kids. He's always been a good recruiter, but with the potential of the NIL finally catching up, we might just be able to start recruiting this program in a vast amount of different ways. It could be a sign of things to come. And you just have to be so excited that ASU could finally be turning into that perennial tournament team that my expectation is, and that the expectation for everybody should be. This is one of the biggest universities in the country. They've got everything to offer, from schooling to to athletics. They got a ton to offer. It's just a question of, can they finally get to that point? And I think we're starting to see that ASU might be figuring it out. They might be connecting those dots. As long as they're able to build off of this and not make it a one-time thing. You can't just have this be your only great class. And like I said, you shouldn't be expecting it to be multiple 5 stars every year. You're not a blue blood program. But we should be expecting very quality guys coming to the program. We should be seeing guys from the transfer portal taking interest in coming to Arizona State. There should be more players that want to come here. Maybe next year's class could be something special. I know all eyes are going to be on Koa Pete, the kid from Perry High School out in Gilbert, the number 5 recruit in the nation. And it's an arms race right now to try and get him. Maybe this is what ends up swaying him to come to Arizona State. But the last thing that we have to answer on this podcast today is, ASU ready to compete? Are they all in for this upcoming season? We're going to talk about it here in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One more time, wherever you get your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for making us your first listen of the day, and a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's wrap it up. The big question is, ASU ready to compete? My answer is yes. And the reason why I say yes is because this is a Hail Mary from Bobby Hurley. There's been questions for a handful of years now as to whether or not he should be fired, as to whether or not he's good enough to get ASU to the tournament on a repeated basis. This is a make or break year. The players know it too, and they gravitate to Bobby Hurley. There's a reason why there's transfers over the last few years that flock to ASU. There's a reason that guys will stay at the program for 2 or 3 years, even when they know that there's opportunities elsewhere. They like Bobby Hurley. They like what this program's about, but you also have not been able to reach your potential. This is the Hail Mary attempt from Bobby Hurley to get to that point. He's all in, and the program here is all in too. They want to win more than ever before. You can just feel it. Even before Sanon committed, I was really excited for this upcoming year. Considering you're coming off what is one of the worst years in program history, or within the last 10 years at least, it's kind of crazy to think that there was this much excitement from me, and I'm sure a lot of other people too were excited about this year. The moment that Jayden Quaintance committed, you felt like, man, this is the year. Everything's going to come together for ASU. Even before Quaintance committed, you still looked at your recruiting class and you were like, it's pretty solid. There's a couple of 4 stars in here. Maybe we could turn it into something. Now with Sanon committing, with the NIL potentially catching up, with a pretty rock solid transfer class coming in, this could be it. At a minimum, ASU's all in for this year. They have put all their chips into the table. I can't think of the actual phrase for it. It's poker. They're putting all their chips in. They are all in right now. And they should be, because this could be Hurley's last chance at Arizona State. It very much could be. I know he signed that 2-year extension. It doesn't mean anything. ASU could decide to move on if they end up with a losing record. It's a very, very realistic outcome here. You hope it doesn't happen, because I do think that Hurley's very good for this program. I've gone back and forth on him. I'll be the first to admit that. I've gone back and forth on Hurley right now. I'm currently in on Hurley because you can just tell over the last 5 months, over the last 4 months, however long, that Hurley has been making the moves to try and get this program back in the direction that we need it to go. It's there, and it's exciting. Is this tournament or bust? I leave that to you guys. I think it probably is. I think if you don't make the tournament next year, I just don't see how this program gets better. Everything is snowballing. The recruiting is catching up. The NIL is catching up. Everybody is taking an interest in coming to Arizona State. There's really good transfers that are bringing themselves to the Valley. It's there. If you don't make the tournament, it might be all for naught. I just don't know if ASU is going to be able to take that step forward. If they're going to definitively turn into one of the better programs in the Big 12, which leads me to my last point. Can you make some noise in the Big 12? This is arguably the best conference for college basketball in the nation. Arizona, Kansas, Houston, Baylor. Those are top dogs. You've still got really quality programs as well. There's an abundance of talent here, and there's an abundance of teams that are going to be seated very, very high when the NCAA tournament rolls around. ASU was always at a major disadvantage to these programs. Is this what you needed to finally get over that hump? On paper, absolutely. Absolutely, this is what you needed. Now it's a matter of executing it. Now it's a matter of actually getting on the court, proving that you're worth the talent, that you're worth the hype, and that you are ready to hang with the big dogs. And it's a tall ask. It really is. I don't know that ASU is ready to be one of the best teams in the Big 12. But they should be able to be in the top half. There's 16 programs in the Big 12? You should be top 8. Hopefully you'll be higher. As far as talent goes, you should be. As far as talent goes, you should be able to hang with some of the best. I'm not 100% familiar with the rest of the teams. Like, I couldn't tell you everyone that's on Arizona right now, or who's on Kansas right now, or Houston. But I feel like ASU, in terms of pure talent, they got to be right there. The 2 5-stars alone bring you within that realm. Then you have all the other 4-stars on the team. You have the guys who are returning. This is a good, if not great, ASU basketball team. It's just a matter of putting it together on the court. Because you can look good on paper all day, and I can say how good they are till I'm blue in the face. Until they put it together, we will be waiting to see if this is finally the push that they needed to get over that hump. But there's a lot that Joson Sanon could impact here for Arizona State. It could impact this year. It could impact next year. It could impact the future of the program under Bobby Hurley. It could impact the future of this program in the Big 12. There's a lot of dominoes that just fell because ASU added their second 5-star of this recruiting class. I want to know what you guys think. Is this the move? Is ASU finally ready to compete on a season by season basis? Are they all in this year? Is this tournament or bust? Are you in on Bobby Hurley? What are your thoughts on Joson Sanon? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrats36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, though, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back again tomorrow. I have a special treat for you guys. I was able to sit down with Arizona State safety Xavion Alford. Great guy. This is actually the second time that he has joined the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. So I think it's fair to say he is a friend of the podcast. But I really am excited for you guys to sit down with me and listen to the interview, listen to what's been going on with Xavion in the year that he had to sit and wait because of the NCAA two-time transfer policy, what he's been working on, what he thinks of the youngsters, and what his expectations are. Check it out. It'll be up tomorrow. I'll see you then. Till next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.